Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of AccelByte's virtual GDC. I'm Shane, and today I'm going to be guiding you through how to manage your users with AccelByte IAM and the admin portal. First, I'm going to cover some of the generic things of like what just AccelByte is. You might not have tuned into one of these videos before today, so to cover that, I'll just kind of give you some details about the company and how we run things when it comes to our AccelByte Cloud product. So on that note, who or what is AccelByte? It is a game backend platform, and it's been built by people from all over the games industry. So people formerly from Epic, EA, Microsoft, Ubisoft, GameSparks, and more. So we have a really good kind of background of people who kind of know uh, back end as a whole, and they've been through this before, and they've seen all the potential problems that can arise out of this, and we are in the best position to avoid those from happening again. And then further from that, we are a one-stop shop for microservices. So generally, if there's a particular feature or something that your game or you as a publisher or a small developer needs, we have these services that covers this. So that's from user accounts, user management, e-commerce, social features, matchmaking, player profile, uh, and on the player profile side of things, you can store data on the player profile. You can store global running total statistics, and even do PlayStation PSN or Steam like cloud saving of binary data. You can also do telemetry and analytics. And if you are interested in hosting dedicated servers, we have a server orchestration service that you can use that. We also have a pretty cool crash reporter as well, which you've probably seen in our looping videos that takes place during the day. And we have a whole lot more, really. So generally, if there's anything you need your game to do online, we will provide a way, or we can provide a way to do that. If not out of the box, we can work with you to come up with a solution that works best for your particular game. And on that note, we fully believe that there is no one size fits all solution to providing game backend services. So even though we have all of those features out of the box, it's worth pointing out that we will work with you to customize those features to how you need them to behave. Not every game is the same. So we truly believe that in order to best have our services work for you, our customer, we will help go over the design documents that you may have. We will tweak our existing services so that they do in fact function just how you need. You might want a specific type of matchmaking. You might have come up with an awesome new way to uh, do user progression and multiplayer, and we're there to help you, and we're there to help build it out for you as well. So again, quick notes. If you've joined one of these videos before, you've heard this, but one of the cool things of AccelByte is we are a single tenant backend service. So what that means is all of your data and all of the transactions happening from your game to your backend, it's all happening on a server that is not sharing its resources with another game or other games. The opposite to this is multi-tenant game backends. And what that basically happens there is if you're using one of the other third-party providers of game backend systems, like a GameSparks or a PlayFab, chances are they're using multi-tenant game hosting or game configuration hosting. So your game is running on a set of services provided by AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, and there are also from 2 to 200 other games also running on this individual stack of services. And what can happen there is there can be some data collision, there can be some kind of negative side effects to your game has been running for a while and some new game is launched and it's got a big YouTube streamer behind it. And that YouTube streamer brings in so much traffic over the course of a weekend that it actually has a negative effect on the game server itself. And what can happen there is that your game can actually see some negative performance out of that. So uh, that's why we build ours with single tenant in mind, so you can actually avoid that kind of that trouble that can come from other third party providers as well. And the final note I'll make about our particular service is that you own your data. We do not sell, we do not look at, and we do not manage the data that's going on your server without your express kind of. We don't touch the data at all. If you need us to manage it, we will manage it for you. That's the way it works. So the data is yours to do with as you please. You can pipe it out of the system into another third-party provider if you wish. It's entirely the onus is on you for that. So on to the topic at hand, which is user management. So I'm going to cover a couple of user flows in this demo today. Specifically, I'm going to register a user. We will check out doing that through email and then maybe doing a third-party connection, so through Steam or one of the others. And then, so once we've done that, then we can actually log in and view that user's particular profile. And as an administrator, then we can check out the admin portal and go through the user and see what we can do as a way of effectively managing our users, either from an administrator standpoint or a customer service standpoint, as well as just checking out some of the other features that what this particular user is doing and stuff like that. So without further ado, I will click on our login button up here, and I'm going to create a new account. And I'm going to open my email client so that I can get their verification code while that's typing stuff in. It is. Okay, so we're going to select a country or region as a user. And it's worth pointing out that everything you see on the screen today is part of our demo portal, and it's a set of tools we've built to help us market and sell the platform. So it's not necessarily the way things are going to look for your product in the end. So this is the player portal, and the player portal is a tool for enabling you as a small developer, a large developer, or a publisher to be able to sell your games direct to your most loyal customers. So the one we have available here is just a kind of front page for what games are available. But if we were building this for you, the way this would work is we would talk to you about what your current website looks like. Do you want to keep that? If you do, that's perfect. We need to know what kind of how you're managing the content on there. The one we're using here is managed by Contentful, which is where we're pulling in all our news blogs. A previous customer we've done work with used WordPress, and their website looks exactly the same today as it did before they had an AccelByte integration. So all we added to their website was a login button up the top, and I believe we modified their store to use our purchase flow as well. But other than that, the existing design and the existing flow is the exact same. So as I mentioned earlier on, you can customize pretty much anything on this platform. If you wanted to track some extra information about your users, you could, of course, put some extra fields in here and even automatically detect which country they're coming from. So for this user, I'm just going to call it Shane GDC1. We're going to use my AccelByte email, but I'm going to just put GDC1 at AccelByte.net. In fact, I've done a few of these this week, so I'm going to put 2 in there and just make sure that it's unique. I'll give my date of birth, and I'll kind of fuzz the numbers in this a bit. And then the password, I'm going to choose an incredibly secure, unbreakable password. Now, the thing you're seeing at the bottom here is we have a legal and management document service, so you can log into the backend and add in terms of service, end user license agreements, the newsletter subscription, all of these kind of agreements players have to agree to, or you can make optional ones as well. So, the newsletter being a very good example of optional. You don't want to force a newsletter onto your players, so we can tick that or leave it unticked in this case and register a user account. So I've now registered the user. I'm going to log him in. So Shane plus GDC2 at AccelByte. If I was able to type correctly today. And my incredibly unhackable secure password. So this is a new user. So the first thing we have to do as a new user by registering via email is enter our verification code. And you can actually see the email we get is something that is just using a MailChimp style template, and it's something we can customize with your brand or even your colors or even change the message that's being sent to a particular user. But if I use this verification code, I'm just going to copy and paste it in, we can verify our user and everything's hunky-dory. We see that the registration process is complete. I've logged in. You can see my name up here, the default avatar, and how much virtual currency I have. So as a user, we can click on our profile and we can see some useful information that is good for the user to be able to manipulate and change. Importantly, the name first, the email, And this user ID is the actual user ID from the database, and this is extremely handy for any kind of customer support that might be going on. And I'll dive into that in just a second. But as a user, you can see that we're able to manage our account, and if we have games on our account, we can manage them here. We can link third-party accounts. So I've actually got my account linked to another one at the moment, but we can unlink that. So we can go log in with my main account, and then we will add it to our newly existing account after the fact. But I've logged in as my main profile in our demo portal here, and I go to my account. You can see the games that we have. You can see the linked accounts, and you can see the sessions. If I jump into linked accounts here, I can disconnect our Steam account, and now this account has no Steam profile with it. So if I go back to our GDC2 account and say GDC2 at AccelByte.net, and again, my incredibly secure password. Oh, I've typed in something incorrectly, so it's GDC AccelByte.net. There we go, back in. So I removed that Steam profile from that previous account, and I might as well add one here. So if I link my account, click on Steam, I go through the user flow that Steam has, and I find my phone for my authenticator. So please don't steal my account. I'm trusting everybody who's watching this stream. We type it in, we click submit, and the servers exchange information, and my account is now linked to my personal Steam account. And we could log in via that Steam account if we wished, or we could log into games. So if I spin up Steam right now and log into a game that we've made for demoing purposes, so we call it the Light Fantastic, I launch our game, and Steam will automatically grant the token. Our AccelByte SDK will consume that token against Steam servers, validate the user, and you can see I've pulled in my Shane GDC1 username that we just created there moments ago, and that's effectively doing a third-party login with one of the external services. So I'm focusing on Steam in this particular demo because, as I've mentioned before, Steam, or our demo portal, is something we use for demonstration purposes. So we only have the one configured in our demo environment here, but we do have out-of-the-box support for stuff like Google and Apple, Xbox, PlayStation. I believe we have some social networks as well, Oculus, and pretty much anything you can imagine. However, if there is something that you would like to use and we don't have an out-of-the-box example or function for that, we can work with you to collect resources, get the required documentation, and build that integration so that your users can log in with whatever third-party platform they wish. So yeah, we'll continue on. As a user, I can manage my sessions, and you'll see this again on the admin portal side, but the admin kind of has slightly more information on what each session is, what data each session contains. And if I continue on our user profile journey here, we have a lot of standard stuff. We can top up our virtual currency. We can, in fact, go buy a game, and it'll pop up in this list here. So if I return back to our store, which I covered a bit more in a video yesterday, I can go down to Light Fantastic here. I can claim the game, and it's now on my profile. And you can see we have this handy little toast that pops up and saying, hey, why not download our launcher so you can actually play your game? I already have the launcher installed, so we'll go to that in a moment. But I've claimed my free game. It's now on my profile. I can click here to go to the store and see how that, see if I have any DLC I could buy. But I can jump down here to our order history. And as a user, I can view every order I've ever made. Generally, we only show if the order was successful for the players. But again, in just a moment, you'll see on the admin panel side of things that this is actually has a lot more data to it. And as an admin, we can also see all of the failed attempts, or for whatever reason, a particular order was never completed. We can actually view that on the admin side of things. So as a user, we can also manage our payment methods. We don't have any saved at the moment. We have it configured for, I believe, specific countries in the back end, and me being in Ireland, it's not available here just yet. But our default payment providers out of the box are Xsolla, Adyen, PayPal, Alipay, and I always forget the last one, but we have a few. And again, if there's a particular third-party payment that you would like supported, like say a Stripe, we will work with you to integrate that third-party payment. The reason why you might have a one you prefer is you might already have an existing contract in place, and that's why you'd want to use it. Or you might just feel like Xsolla, or you might get better rates with someone else. And again, we will we're there to facilitate that need if you have it. The platform and player can also generate and redeem codes for items. So again, I showed it yesterday in a video, but we can jump into it quickly here. I can generate codes for any item built in the backend. So any entitlement, games, virtual currency, items, in-game items, all of those can have codes generated and users can claim them back. We can also do the kind of opposite of that, where we can go to Steam and we can request Steam to give us a few hundred codes and we can put those into our backend. And whenever a user buys a game on our backend, we can, of course, grant a Steam key along with the entitlement for that player to play on our. So that kind of gives your players the freedom to play your game wherever they want. And further to that, we are working on a feature called Buy Once, Play Anywhere. It requires a bit of extra work, but we're kind of slowly approaching the goal of how we would achieve such a thing. But please do contact us or sign up to our newsletter, and you will hear news about that as it progresses. So further on to what the player can actually do on their side of things and how they manage their account. We can see any notifications that the player might have and configure notification preferences here, but we don't have any configured for our demo environment. And then we can check what terms and legal services we've agreed to. So I can click on one of these and you'll see the legal document that's stored on the backend server. And this is a particular version of this legal document, which you can update and manage as an administrator. And then the next time the user logs in, they have to agree to that particular of this document. And finally, on our user journey, we have the ability for users to make GDPR requests, and we are fully GDPR compliant. We have a GDPR service in place that works and is kept up to date with any requirements on these types of services. So as a player, I need to be able to make a personal data request. I type in my password here, and this triggers a flow on the back end of a player has made a request. We need to go through all of our adjacent services, such as IAM, matchmaking, chat, whatever may be there. And the service will scrub through any personally identifiable information from those player documents. And, that's if they're deleting the account. If they're requesting the account, it will find those documents. It will collate them into some JSON files, zip them up, and return a file that your user can download here. If the user is requesting that data be deleted, they are requesting that their account is being deleted. So that will go through the database and scrub any personally identifiable information from those files while keeping those files intact so that you're not actually having pockets of missing data. So again, it ensures you're fully GDPR compliant from the player side of view as well as on the backend side of view. And I'll jump into how we configure a little bit of that in just a moment. So the final piece of our player journey here is the AccelByte launcher, which I am going to pop up just here. But the launcher is kind of the second part of the puzzle to our player portal. So the player can buy games on the portal, and then we need to be able to have the player download and manage the games that they've downloaded. So if we log in as Dane plus GDC2 at AccelByte.net, get my password correct this time, the first time. We type it in here, log in, successful. So this is going to populate the games that we have entitlements to, and we can see the only one we have is the free game we just downloaded. But as a player, I can verify installation, I can check for update, I can uninstall the game, and I can, of course, play the game. And much like Steam, if I click play the game here, the game will launch and log me in with the credentials that I've logged in through the launcher with. So we'll quickly jump back to the launcher as there's just a couple of extra features. Generally, the launcher is just an Electron.js app that is pulling data from the player portal. So you'll see the storefront here and the storefront in the launcher are pretty much the same thing. We also support the news, which I mentioned is from the Contentful blog. And then again, as a player, I want to be able to get support for my purchases. So I can click in here and out of the box, we have a demo that hooks Zendesk in. But we can, of course, use another desk type solution, or if you have a different idea for how support is going to be conducted, we can work with you on how to fulfill that. But by default with Zendesk, we can pull out a lot of the existing FAQs and have the player be able to maybe debug the problem themselves. Or worst case scenario, we can have the player who may be stuck, they can contact our support and we can have that player send any particular files or just a request that we can then use diagnose the issue. We can still do all of our virtual currency stuff. We can click on that and we can buy our coin packs. And then an important part is the social features are built into our launcher as well. So as a player, I can find friends, I can add friends to my profile, and then once I have friends added, we can start chatting to each other and maybe even invite each other to games. And that's all using our social service, which, for the record, social service is using WebSockets, and everything else from login to e-commerce and the player profile are all using REST requests. So we use the WebSockets for friends, notifications, matchmaking, and something else that slipped my mind, chatting actually. So with that, we're able to get really quick asynchronous messages to and from the server. Whereas with REST requests, that would be extra bulky, trying to constantly pull the server for information even there may be. So other than that, it's a fairly standard what you'd expect from a game launcher, and that really does it for how the player interacts with your games and your service. So I'm going to log out of our player here, and I'm going to log into our admin account. And then I'm going to show off some of the admin features on how to manage player data on the admin board. So we've logged in as our admin account. It uses the same IAM system as a player. However, we have control over user roles. And roles are how we let our users, or how we differentiate our users rather, on the back end. So by default, any player who registers through the player portal is considered a user. And if we click into user role here, we can see that a user has these permissions. And these are kind of our standard permissions of everything a user is allowed to do. They're tied into all of the services that we offer, and we can say whether users are able to create, read, update, or delete those. But as an administrator, I believe I'm in here as an admin portal super user. I can click on here. I can manage whether the role is enabled or disabled or deleted altogether. I can in fact give particular users the explicit ability to grant other users this role, so it can't be abused. And then we can also see which users are admin super user here, and I can remove those users at will. But we can also see that this admin super user has an expanded set of permissions, specifically with the admin preface, and that this admin is able to create, read, update, and delete extra information that a regular user couldn't. So you'd use this role system to kind of define your users, define your admins, but more importantly, define your community managers and customer support agents. So a customer support agent may only have permissions to review the identity and access management system, which will just be able to return user accounts and user orders and that kind of thing. Whereas a developer might be able to configure the game and social services, and you may even have a marketing person who would manage the e-commerce roles. And by setting those permissions, those users can only affect change on their respective services that are useful for them. So I'll jump into our user account manager here, and I can search for users using email or display name. I can also use user ID and creation date. So as a customer service representative, being able to find a user and find out information and make changes about that user is incredibly important. So here I can see that the generic stuff that we could see as a user before. I can see my name, email address, date of birth, my preferred language, my country, the time zone. I can disable accounts. I can make requests, GDPR requests on behalf of this user. I can jump in here and I can see this user's recent orders. And as I mentioned earlier, as a user, I can only see orders that are fulfilled. But as a customer service representative, I can also see orders that have been closed. I can jump in here and get more information about this order. Specifically, I can see that it was closed, what the dates and times of things happened. And if I look at the order history, I can even get specific information about why this order was closed and not fulfilled. And in this particular case, it's because it was paid. So useful stuff for diagnosing issues with customers who might be sending tickets in. I can also see the user's active sessions and manage those. This user doesn't have any, but if I jump back to our GDC2 user, so I keep calling them all Shane, so we're getting quite a few of them. So you can see that this user has 2 active sessions at the moment, one on the website and one in the launcher. And a bit more information about the user here in comparison to what a user can see on their profile. But basically, we can see what device they're connected on, which particular client credential they are using to connect to our service. and just some extra information about their location as well. So as a customer service rep, I could see that a user may have built some weird tool to connect, or there might be some oddities about who's connected or what country they're from, and we can revoke access and force the user's password. So we'll jump back into our Shane and AccelByte.net account here. And some extra actions you can take on user accounts is you can credit or debit their wallet. So, a user might have had a particularly trying time trying to play the game, or they missed out on an item and they're a bit upset. But you can grant users credit this way, and we can also give a reason or a comment. And you could say, had a bad time. Well, had a time, that's for sure. But had a bad time. When we credit this user some extra currency, but we can also view the history of the currency that this user has been granted. So you can see I like to give myself money a lot. Doesn't? But we can see the reason that this person was given money, and this helps to kind of prevent abuse of the system, because you can see the comment as well as the source. But also, this is kind of something that we could modify to include who actually gave their amount of credit, and you can build kind of a paper trail there. So you've heard of stories in the past of probably community service representatives who might have given their friends a leg up in a game by granting extra items or giving them credits and all that kind of stuff. So that's there to protect you as your game progresses. Being popular and having friends of people who are working on the customer support side of things. We also support the ability to ban players. So a really interesting feature of our product is that you don't just have to ban the player from the entire game. You can, of course, do that by preventing them from logging in and invalidating their sessions. But you can ban a player from individual aspects of your games. You can prevent a player from being able to send chat while still being able to read it. You can prevent them from chatting at all. You can prevent them from buying items or trading or playing with any part of the community. And you can give a duration for this ban, whether it's a small amount of time or a large amount of time, whatever. You can generate a reason. So, in this case, it could be they were cheating. And again, you see the comment system here of cheating, wall hacks, and that's again for just kind of making sure that people aren't abusing their power as with the ability to ban players in the game. So I can ban myself from logging in here, and you can see that this current status is banned. We have a total of 1, and we can view a history of all the times this particular player has been banned as well. The reason given at whatever other action has taken on the account. You can also see in my email address, as a player, I've received information that I've been banned because, well, I cheated. So we go back to our player overview, and that's kind of it for what you can see on this particular player. If I go to my GDC2 player and open that, you can see the accounts that this player has linked. In this case, it's just Steam, but you would see the full list of things there if we had linked our PlayStation or Xbox. Further on, we can go view logs that this player has generated against the server. So I can click on any one of these, and I can see that a user has made a particular request to the server. And this just helps you debug options. And again, this is part of our kind of demoing purposes where we're showing you that you can, in fact, see what the server is sending back and forth to players. And it just helps for being able to debug issues as well. As an administrator, we can, of course, also see what terms and services a user has signed. And this is something that I've covered in a previous video, and I'm also covering in a video again later tonight about how we manage these. But it's just a handy tool for you to be able to quickly go, okay, this user didn't actually break the rule because they never agreed to that particular version of the term, etc. And then a really cool thing, which we don't have any data to show on this, but if we click on our dedicated server manager really quickly, we are able to see dedicated servers that a user is actively in, and I'm getting a very weird error there. But I'll try it once more. No, okay. No issue, no big issue. I think the account I'm using to view that is not working correctly, but yeah, that was weird. So we do have the ability to host dedicated servers. The product is called Armada, and if a player is in a session, we can actually see which sessions that this user is in on that dedicated server. And click into it and see some extra information. So for being able to manage your users and kind of grant them roles and just being able to diagnose issues that a particular user might have, it's an incredibly useful tool. I think one thing I actually didn't cover here is the ability to manage the entitlements that a particular user has. I can grant user items. So in fact, I find our GDC user here real quick. GDC2. view and click entitlements. So we can see that they only have that one particular game, but I can also say, why don't we give you a voyage to Sri Aya, and we'll give you a copy of that and grant. And if I pop open my launcher here and I click back in my library, it's going to check my entitlements, and we see a voyage to Sri Aya has popped up in our launcher. Not yet released, but the player now has ownership of that. But a cool thing about the entitlements is you can view a history of this particular entitlement, whether it was revoked or when it was granted, how it was purchased. You can also disable it or revoke it entirely. And we can click on more details and get more details that way. Under our privacy and security tab, we just have the ability to find sessions by a particular user. So if a user has none, we don't see anything. We filter it by device, but if we try our Shane GDC2 email address, we should see the sessions we have here, and we can filter by which credential they're using or which device ID they're using. We also can see any active personal data requests. So if I jump back to Friday the 6th, or is it Friday the 13th? I can't remember. My colleague Vincent made a personal data request, and you can see the user ID that was done on which behalf, as well as the date and time. And if this was still processing, collecting all that data, you could cancel it if that request was made by email. We have a similar feature for being able to do account deletions. I don't think we have any active in the system before, but it just shows you which users are requesting that on which dates, and you can cancel that if it's in process. And then we also provide the ability to prevent players who are underage from playing your game. So we can enable the age restriction, yes or no. We can set a global age restriction to, in this case, 17 years old. But we could change this on a per country basis. So in Indonesia, for example, it's 14. In Ireland, I believe I set it to 16 before. So depending on the laws in that country and how old a user has to be able to give their information away, you have the ability to manage that and make sure that is compliant to wherever you're selling and people are playing your game. And finally, on the GDPR side of things, we have the ability to send emails to administrators if a particular GDPR request is going through. If there's an issue with it, they will receive an email saying, "Hey, this is happening. You need to sort it out." And this is also useful for if you're using AccelByte in conjunction with another third-party service, that third-party service may not have an automated GDPR system like we do, so there's no way to trigger one remotely, trigger the process remotely. So whoever receives the email can now go and check that third-party service as well and start the process there for deleting or retrieving particular. So that's kind of it for managing the users on the admin side of things. Another thing I'll jump into real quick here is namespace. So namespace is important in users because we have many different namespaces depending on how many different games we have. And I'll probably actually jump a bit more into explaining namespaces here. But a namespace, or your entire deployment of AccelByte, is one namespace. So it is the AccelByte namespace in this case, or your developer or publisher namespace. And then we can create sub namespaces underneath that parent level namespace, and those would be our game configurations. So everything you see that we can configure in this list here is kind of directed towards configuring our top level features. But I could jump into our light fantastic game here, and you'll see that there's a subset of features we could actually configure for this particular game. And one important thing to note as well is that if a user hasn't played Light Fantastic, they would not have an account showing up under this list. So you can see there's far less Shanes who are playing this particular game. And then when they play that game, they are now considered a user of that game. So it's really handy for tracking, active users and what games they're playing. And you could use that to reward users for if a user played game A, that when game B comes out, they might get a special item, or you could even grant them early beta access to game B based on how loyal your players are. So that's kind of it for managing your users as an administrator using AccelByte, or as a publisher or even a developer. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We do have a website, and I believe it is AccelByte.io. And on our website, we have the ability to ask a question with a little button down here. And that question will go to our team. We can do our best to answer it. We can schedule a one-on-one call with you. Or you could just straight up email hello@accelbyte.io, and we'll do our best to get back to you quickly and with concise and useful answers. So I've been Shane, and thank you for joining me for this particular stream. Thanks, and bye.